Thank you. Welcome to the regular Bellevue City Council meeting for February 28th, 2022. Before we begin tonight, I would like to take a moment to voice the City Council's support for the Ukrainian community during this time of international crisis. 4 days ago, on Thursday, February 24th, Ukraine was invaded by Russia. This unprovoked and vicious attack has created a massive humanitarian crisis, with thousands of lives lost and hundreds of thousands of people displaced from their homeland. To those in the Ukrainian community, please know that you have our support during this trying time. It's also important to point out that the actions of the Russian government do not reflect the feelings or loyalties of the many Russian Americans who call Bellevue home. We hope for a quick end to this terrible war, and our thoughts are with the Ukrainian people, wherever they may be. Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Yes, thank you. Mayor Robinson.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Neuenhouse.
Here.
Councilmember Barksdale.
Here.
Councilmember Lee.
Here.
Councilmember Robertson.
Here.
Thank you. Councilmember Stokes.
Here.
And Councilmember Zahn.
Here.
Thank you.
Councilmember Stokes, could you please lead us in the flag salute?
Yes, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So we have a special commendation tonight. We do commendations when we want to note an event or an individual of importance. And tonight we are commending a long-term staff member, Mary Kate Behrens, who this is her last day, I believe, or at least her last week. And so I would like to ask Councilmember Robertson to read the commendation from the entire council, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Whereas Mary Kate Behrens has provided outstanding service to the city of Bellevue for 21 years, including the past 7 as deputy city manager and 9 years as deputy city attorney before that. And whereas Kate was born in Bellevue and lived in the Lake Hills neighborhood until she was 9, and whereas it was a homecoming of sorts when the young lawyer left a prominent Seattle law firm to become a legal planner for Bellevue's Planning and Community Development Department in 2001. And whereas as deputy city attorney in the city attorney's office from 2006 to 2014, Kate played a crucial role advising and representing the city, notably helping ensure sound transit light rail on the east side would serve Bellevue's interests with limited impact on neighborhoods. And whereas Kate consistently has been able to synthesize and explain details about complex projects and policies, recognizing the key impacts on residents and skillfully counsel the city as it navigates unprecedented growth. And whereas as deputy city manager since 2014, Kate has provided oversight for multiple departments and led countless high-profile strategic initiatives that have improved services, all while modeling honest, caring leadership that reinforced for all staff how their contributions make a difference for the people we serve. Now, therefore, on behalf of Mayor Lynn Robinson and on behalf of the Bellevue City Council, do this 28th day of February in the year 2022, hereby commend Mary Kate Behrens for her commitment to public service, excellent leadership, and consistent consideration of resident and local business needs in her role with the city of Bellevue. And that is signed, Mayor Lynn Robinson.
Thank you, Councilmember Robertson. Would you like to add your own personal comment? And then I'll go Councilmember Stokes, Councilmember Barksdale, Councilmember Zahn, Councilmember Lee, Councilmember Deputy Mayor Neuenhouse.
Thank you. I would love to. Tonight, I'm feeling a little weepy already with the discussion on Ukraine and then saying goodbye to Kate. What a difficult night this is. So yeah, I worked with Kate since 2003 when I was appointed to the Planning Commission, and she has always just been wonderful as a person, as an advisor, as a friend, as a team member of the staff and as someone that the public, everyone that works with her looks to with integrity, trust, and helping build confidence in government. I mean, she has just been one of the best people to work with. Talk about complex, meaningful work that you've done, Kate. You've done some amazing things. When I was part of the council negotiating team for Sound Transit Light Rail with Councilmember Stokes and Wallace and Council Daginger before Councilmember Stokes was elected, Kate was the lead attorney for that. And she was in on all those negotiating sessions, revising MOUs, revising contracts, negotiating with Sound Transit, working just so hard on behalf of the city to make us have a light rail system that would really work for Bellevue and the entire East Side region, and doing it with integrity and fairness and good humor. It was some hard times, and that good humor part was hard. So I'm so sorry to lose you from Bellevue. I know that it is Grand Rapids gain, and like I said, I'm feeling kind of weepy about this. We're going to miss you so much. I wish this was an in-person meeting. So I'd give you a big hug, and having Kyle home here for down home week would be fun too. But because I know he's on the call, but so yeah, just best of luck. Good luck with your family. Family comes first. So that's so important. I honor that to my core. So, but we are going to miss you, and you're going to be, your feet may not be big, but your shoes are going to be very hard to fill. So best of luck for you in Grand Rapids. If you ever come back to Bellevue, please do stop in, because I know that I'm not alone in being someone who really cares about your well-being as a person, as well as honoring the amount of work and impact you've had. The commendation didn't talk about the amount of trust that you have from the public, but I hear all the time where the public and people who've worked with you, they're like, she's just the best, and we can trust her. We know that she's going to do the right thing. And confidence in government is something that you build every day. So thanks.
Well said. Councilmember Stokes.
Well, as in Councilmember Robertson's usual thorough coverage of things, I can echo all those. And it was just amazing working with you when I first came on in 2012 on the Sound Transit stuff. And I could echo and certainly endorse all that Jennifer said. What I did when I first thought of this, what came in my head was seeing you standing in front of this, what must be 10 by 15 feet blackboard, green board down in the council chambers there, and you literally fill that whole thing out in great detail. You could follow it, and you basically said, okay, guys, this is what it is. This is what we're working with. And you just had a great sense of knowing what you're talking about, and also communicating that and getting us together. And I think there were a few, as you remember, a couple of ripping up times and this and that, and you were always there to really guide us through that, and that's just amazing. We're going to miss you very, very much, and just even talking with you about other less compelling things, and always being there and being helping, but also not just saying, well, this is what you have to do, but this is what would be the thing to do, and this is how we do it, and all that, and work through it. And I appreciate that very much. And I have to say that every time now when I go over to Ballard, since you live there and Genevieve lives in Ballard, I'll think about you in addition to other times. So just have a great time, and we will miss you, and you'll always be in our hearts. And thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Barksdale.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Kate, I know that my experience with you hasn't been as deep as Councilmember Robertson and Councilmember Stokes, but I have always appreciated our conversations, and the few occasions where I did have a chance to brainstorm with you ideas and ways of looking at different policy issues, I've appreciated the perspective that you brought to the conversation, and so I can see strands or threads of everything that they're talking about. So just want to say thank you for all of your service and commitment to the city, and we'll miss you, and look forward to catching up again soon if you're ever in Bellevue.
Thank you. Councilmember Zahn.
Yeah, I echo all of my colleagues' comments, Kate. I was thinking probably we've spent more time when we had when we were doing council retreats in person, right? Sitting around having a meal together and able to just share a bit and learn more about your family and your daughter. And, you know, family does come first. And so I'm excited that you're going to be able to be close to family in your new role. And we will definitely miss your, I'm going to say, dedication, your thoughtfulness of working towards a solution, because at the end of the day, you know, we do work on many, many sticky things, and the ability to thread a needle through all of the sometimes competing interests to get to a solution that is workable is super important. And I feel like you bring that to us, that pragmatic nature, as well as the what else can we look at that we might not have considered yet. So thank you very much for that. And we'll miss you as well. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Lee.
Hi, Kate. I think as one of the longest serving council member, I've got to know a lot of City of Bellevue employees and also, you know, council members as well. And you have always been impressed me. And I sometimes wonder why. And I find out that you and I went to the same university in Michigan. So we got something in common. We got something good out of it. Maybe the best, you know, of what is offered. And you have always been, you know, one of the most steady, stable, as always, you know, suggested by others, said, and to be one of the last to say, many of the things has been said. So I just, you know, go to the crux of other things. And you are, you know, the Bellevue City staff, as you probably know, we all know, is one of the best. You know, I work with other cities. I've been staff, you know, with Seattle and so on. And Bellevue is non-equal. And you are best of the best because you have, you know, managed and you have kept a lot of many ideas and talents and creative ideas and be able to make them work, distill it to meet the council's needs, objectives, how to distill things. And you never got involved in way that you confuse things or break things apart. Instead, you bring them together and present it in a very, very cohesive, very respectable, very you know, easy to understand and very rational in the right way. So it makes our job so much easier because we do have a lot of talented folks. You know, when you work in this environment, it's hard. You know that. So you are able to, you know, condense, distill it. And so I appreciate you. We appreciate you. And so, you know, obviously, as Jennifer Robertson said, family is important. We all have to have a balance in life. So we will miss you. You are leaving the best city, the best place in the country. So sometimes I wonder, how can you do that? But, you know, there's another important aspect of life, which only you know. And I trust that you know what is the best for you. And all I can say is we wish you the best. And we wish you one of these days, you come back to where you were raised and you know, share with us all the things that you have helped us with, and we will miss you. In the meantime, we'll wait until we see you again.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, when I first heard, Kate, that you were leaving, I got really nervous because I thought Jim Harbaugh had finally made a good hire for his team. Thankfully, that's not the case. So my Wisconsin Badgers should have considerable success going forward still against your Wolverines. But hey, you know, city management, I think it's a real tough business, and especially in medium to larger size cities, and the complexities and the issues and tremendous responsibilities are, I think, in some ways, reason to think twice about such a career. And I'm so glad that you did not, because all that responsibility plus the media spotlight. And I was always so impressed by the way you handled yourself during some very difficult topics and issues, and especially how you handled the press and the media at times during some difficult circumstances. I think everybody noticed that and appreciated that. So, professional city management matters. And I think when people really start to dig in and understand the tremendous role that a city manager or a deputy city manager play in the running of a city, they really start to appreciate all the great work that you have done for this city for so many years. I think throughout the world, the best managed local governments are managed by those types of deputy city managers with experience, aptitude, integrity, commitment to public service, and then your hardest part of your job, working with elected leadership like us. But you've brought all that and more to the city of Bellevue over these many years, and I think the city is better off for it. So, Kate, it's been an honor and a privilege to work with you these last 4+ years, and I wish you and your family all the best in your new adventures in Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Thank you. So Kate, I'll say something and then I'm going to ask our city manager to speak as well. I just can't even put into words how much I've appreciated working with you. When I think of the words that come to my mind when I think about you is trustworthy, intelligent, committed, and reliable, and your beautiful smile. We never have had a meeting where you haven't been engaged and smiling and just bringing this positive energy to the room. So we are going to miss you very much, but we wish you so well and hope to stay in touch with you. Mr. Miyake.
Well, a lot of good things have been said here, Kate. And I just speak on behalf of the leadership team, and we just like to thank you for your many years of service with the city, and for advancing our One City culture of shared leadership, stewardship, public service, and collaboration, as well as the leadership team philosophy of really making sure that the success of one is the success of all of us, which is really dear, and your ability to focus on the strengths of all of us and individually versus our own personal weaknesses. In the leadership team, all of us have valued your intellect and your ability to see ahead and really move the leadership team ahead on so many important topics. On a personal note, I will miss you dearly. You were the first one I hired, and you've been just a tremendous colleague, one that's provided this valuable counsel, whether I ask for it or not. And Kate, you leave the city with your mark on it and truly leave it in a better place than when you got here. So just the best of luck in Grand Rapids.
Thank you. Mayor, would you mind if I said a few words?
Please.
Mayor, Deputy Mayor, council members, thank you very much for the commendation. It really is very touching, and it is hard to say goodbye, especially in this virtual environment, but hopefully it will help me keep it together a little bit better than if we were all in person. Just want to share a few reflections, and first to the city council, the current city council, and all the former council members I've worked with. Democracy doesn't work without people who are willing to step forward and do what is largely a thankless job and a very difficult job that you juggle with the other things going on in your lives. And I have always been impressed with each of the council members and how committed you are, and that you step forward into this and make democracy work for the rest of us. And that's particularly poignant tonight with the way Mayor Robinson opened the meeting. I think we can all reflect that local government is really pivotal in the kinds of lives that we all want our residents to lead. And again, I appreciate you and all the times I've been able to work in partnership with you all to help you bring your vision forward. It's really been an honor. what has kept me at the City of Bellevue for 20 years is the staff here. So I do want to say to all of the staff I've had the pleasure of working with over the last 20 years, I've never worked on any single project alone. I've always been a part of teams. And in my various roles at the City of Bellevue, I've had the honor of working on teams with people from every single department. So I've really learned so much, had so much fun. And seen the passion of the staff. It's really what has kept me here, is that, from top to bottom, it's a staff that cares deeply about making a difference and helping people and helping each other. And it's been fun and great. And I've learned so much that it is hard to say goodbye, as you all reflected on. This is a decision largely driven by family, but I'm taking a lot of Bellevue with me and all of the staff that I've worked with. I appreciate all of your support and all of the kind words I'm getting over the last little bit as well. To the leadership team, the last 18 months or however long we've been in COVID, I've probably spent more time with all of you in the virtual environment than I ever would have imagined. You've really become my team for the last 15 or 18 months, the people I see every day. Lots of times it feels like all day. And you're just a great group of leaders, so passionate, so committed to the employees, so creative in trying to meet these challenges and meet the challenges that are in front of the community. That I have faith that I'm going to hear great things about Bellevue, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how you all continue to pull together and help lead the city in a really great way. And Bellevue, as Councilmember Lee pointed out, is the best community, and I'm sure there's going to be really great things that I hear about what comes next as you all help the organization and the community adapt to all this change. And finally, I will say to my current boss, Brad Miyake, and other bosses, I have been fortunate at the City of Bellevue to have great mentors as my bosses. I would not be where I am today without all of them. But Brad in particular, your support has been so meaningful to me. This is where I'm going to lose it. So I'll wrap it up quickly to say I've learned a lot, and I am taking with me your compassion and your caring for your employees. And that is something I will replicate in my new job and hope to do half of what you've done in showing your support. So I appreciate that.
Thank you, Kate. For the next 3 to 5 years, anything good you hear coming out of Bellevue, you probably had a hand in. So you'll have a long legacy here. Thank you. Okay. Next up, approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
City Clerk, do we have anybody signed up for oral communications?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. I'm pulling myself together after Kate's comments. So sorry. There are actually 3 speakers this evening pre-registered for oral communications. And with that, I will call the first speaker, which is Annie DiMartino. And Ms. DiMartino, can you hear me? Ms. DiMartino, can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. Your time begins now.
Wonderful. Hello, I'm Annie DiMartino, and I'm the Director of Community Engagement for the Performing Arts Center East Side, or PACE. I am speaking in support of the suggestions being brought forth to amend Bellevue's noise control code. Last April, as many cities were beginning to open, PACE launched an initiative entitled Arts Without Barriers. And this program, initially intended to last 10 weeks, included partnering with Gigs for You. This collaboration allowed local busker style musicians the opportunity to play 2-hour music sets in high foot traffic areas around Bellevue and other East Side communities. These musicians and accompanying gig managers had been out of work for close to 18 months, and this was their first time returning to live performance. Throughout the 10-week celebration, PACE partnered with Kids Quest Children's Museum, Marketplace at Factoria, Bellevue Library, and 3 different locations throughout the Bellevue collection to provide over 70 free live arts experiences in Bellevue, and in total, 90 plus performances throughout the East Side. And we did this to usher out the quiet pandemic and to joyfully welcome in the beginnings of the recovery phase. Now, PACE is once again offering our Arts Without Barriers program this spring, and we are returning to Marketplace at Factoria, Kids Quest, and 1 location site on the Bellevue collection. But we have found it very difficult to navigate offering much more because prime days like Sundays and dates such as Mother's Day or Memorial Day and post 5 p.m. performance times are off limits to outside venue spots under the current sound permit structure. So I am voicing my support that with an amendment to the noise control code, PACE would look forward to adding to Bellevue's live and vibrant art scene through expanded partnerships all 7 days of the week. Thank you so much for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Ms. DiMartino. The next speaker on the list is Eden Helstein. And Ms. Helstein, I do not see you connected by name. If you are connected to this call with a phone, could you please use the *9 function to raise your hand? That is you. Okay, thank you. Ms. Helstein, can you hear me? Ms. Helstein, can you hear me?
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Oh, yes, I apologize, Mr. Helstein. Yes, your
That
time
is
begins
just
now.
fine. So, hello, everybody. My name is Eden Helstein. I'm the owner and operator of Evolution Studios here in the heart of the Bellevue Arts District, and I am in support of change to the Bellevue Noise Ordinance. I've been back here in the Bellevue Arts District for 30 years, and I know both sound and volume very well. Changing this ordinance will allow Bellevue to evolve into a more vibrant city and provide our communities with a better quality of living. And we can benefit from this, such as having music festivals, more cultural events. As Annie said, buskers. We can help define an arts district. The list goes on and on. There's one thing we can all pretty much agree on, and that is music. So for a second, I'd like to talk about decibels. That is the volume of a sound. And with a decibel meter, we can measure and manage this. To give you an example of how loud things are in our everyday lives. For example, our breathing is 10 decibels. A whisper is 20 decibels. Inside of a library is 40 decibels. A vacuum cleaner is 70 decibels. Getting louder, we have a blender, which is 80 decibels. Now, an outdoor rock concert has a lower decibel level than indoor concerts because the sound vibrations reverberate less outdoors since there are no walls or ceilings. For this reason, rock concert decibels in outdoor venues range between 90 to 100 decibels. Finally, we have thunder, which is 120 decibels. Anyway, I hope this puts things a little bit more into perspective. And if anyone has questions, please let me know. I'm certainly here to help. And I appreciate the opportunity and the time to speak tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Helstein. The next speaker on the list is Colin May. Mr. May, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. Your time begins now.
Hi, thank you for taking my comments. My name is Colin May. I'm a 2-decade resident of Woodridge. Also want to say shout out to Eden, whose business I have frequented in the past. I support the proposed revisions of the Noise Control Code. I would like us to go further. I want to point out that targeting amplified sound is unnecessary. It's not useful and should probably be removed from the city code. Our concern should be purely for the noise itself and its effects, not its source. A mariachi trumpeter is always going to be much louder than a guitarist with a little pig nose amplifier hanging from their belt. So I call on the council to revise the code to remove that designation of amplified sound entirely and replace it with language such as loud or repetitive noise, or perhaps recreational noise, or even just music, with appropriate definition as needed. I want to point out that we support many fine facilities in Bellevue for community athletics, for gardening and hiking, for visual and literary arts, for maker spaces and so on, and the barriers for those activities are low. They have small or no fees, little or no paperwork. You don't need a permit to play basketball or go for a walk or have a picnic or read poetry in the park. It should be the same for music and dance and theater. We, the creative residents of Bellevue, need places to gather and share our artistry as participants, not simply as consumers. We don't need simply more theaters to go to. So to promote that kind of grassroots, mutual, community performing arts culture in Bellevue in the electric and electronic age, we should drop the special treatment of amplification in the code, remove the need for permits, but just add rules limiting loud noise duration and requiring breaks, remove the Sunday restriction, replace the 5 p.m. restriction with something more reasonable, and make it easy for ourselves to be confident in compliance with the law. I suggest we designate certain locations as officially noise-friendly. Potential examples are the circular paved area at the northeast corner of Downtown Park, beside Bell Square, and the amphitheater at Crossroads Park behind the Bellevue Children's Theater. For those places, definitely eliminate the requirement for permits, even if permits remain required for other locations. I guess I'm running out of time. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you, Mr. May, for your comments. At this point, that is the end of our pre-registered list of speakers. If there is anyone else connected to this meeting that would like to make a comment to the council, please use the raise hand function or *9 if you're connected with a phone. Mayor, I do not see any additional hands that would close oral communications.
All right, thank you. Next up, we have a report from our city manager, Mr. Miyake.
So good evening, Mayor Robinson and council members. I have one item under the city manager's report, and included in your packet this evening is a management brief to the city council informing you of an emergency procurement. This emergency procurement was entered in response to the January 17th landslide in the Somerset neighborhood. And per city code, a report to the council is required shortly after entering into any emergency procurement. So I'm meeting that purpose tonight. The code requirement and a copy of the contract is also available in the council document library if you would like to take a look at it. And that's all I have to report on this evening, Mayor.
Thank you. Next up, we have the consent calendar. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I move that we approve the consent calendar.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we have 3 study session items tonight. Mr. Miyake, would you like to introduce? Oh no, we have 4 study session items tonight. Would you like to introduce the first one, Mr. Miyake?
Sure, Mayor. Included in your package are a number, the first one is regional issues. I apologize. That is the first topic on your study session agenda tonight, and included in your package are a number of regional updates. Tonight, joining us is Lacey Jane Wolf, who will provide a few comments on your state legislative priorities, and also will be available to answer any questions on any of the updates in your packet this evening. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn over to Lacey Jane Wolf, the Assistant Director of Intergovernmental Relations. Lacey Jane, sorry.
No problem. Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and council members. If you can believe it, we only have 10 days left in the 2022 state legislative session. And I'm happy to say that I have good news to report on several of the city's legislative priorities. As Brad mentioned, more information is included in your packets tonight, and I'd be happy to take any questions at the end. Let's start off with transportation. This month, the Senate and House Transportation Committee chairs, Senator Leas and Representative Fye, released a joint transportation revenue package called Move Ahead Washington. If adopted, the package will spend over $16 billion over the next 16 years. Unfortunately, the transportation package does not include direct funding allocation to cities. However, 3 of Bellevue's 7 transportation priorities are funded through this revenue proposal. So those priorities, just to refresh your memory, are first of all, funding to complete I-405 and SR-167 projects that are facing delays due to COVID-19 related toll instability. This includes critical improvements on the north end of I-405 to support bus rapid transit and really prevent and stop the backward slide of projects that we see happening all over the region. So let's get that project done as soon as possible. Moving on, the revenue proposal also would fully fund our request for $18 million for the East Rail for the I-90 Steel Bridge, which is a critical connection between Bellevue and Renton. And that third priority I wanted to highlight for you is the package includes full funding for the Mountains to Sound Greenway next phase, which is the 150th, nearly $7 million. So very exciting to see funding for all 3 of those things in there. I think that Bellevue's joint outreach together with the Chamber and the BDA has been very successful in this area. You might remember that last year, the city and the Chamber co-hosted a tour of our 7 transportation legislative priorities. We even got the bus and legislators stuck in a little bit of our traffic to give them a realistic experience of what it is like to travel around in Bellevue. So it's exciting that 3 out of 7 of our priorities would be funded through this proposal. Mayor Robinson, Councilmember Robertson, and Councilmember Zahn have all spoken in support of the package, and we really appreciate that. Now, the legislature continues to hash out the details on the revenue side, so it's not a done deal yet, but very excited to report on progress in this important area. Moving on to land use, I wanted to let you know that the missing middle bill, HB 1782, that I spoke to you about at our last regional issues meeting, failed to advance and meet a key cutoff. Many of you know that HB 1782 would have required lots exceeding 4,500 square feet that are currently zoned for single family housing within half a mile of a transit stop, major transit stop, to be zoned for duplex, triplex, fourplex, detached ADUs, townhouses, and other missing middle housing types. And additionally, that type of lot that is outside of the half mile radius of major transit stops the bill would have required cities to allow duplexes and detached ADUs on those lots. So the bill was intended to increase affordable housing, which Bellevue does support the region's goal of increasing affordable housing. However, the bill was inconsistent with council's adopted state legislative agenda, which opposes state mandates like this one. So of course, Bellevue opposed the bill. We and other cities raised concerns about increased density that would be spread throughout the city across all single family zoning of 4,500 square feet or greater, that it would have negative impacts to traffic, to water and sewer infrastructure, to the environment, and similar infrastructure issues. And we were also concerned about whether the bill would actually result in increased affordable housing, since similar laws in Oregon and California haven't seemed to do so. So we and the Association of Washington Cities raised concerns about these bills, and the bill will not be advancing this session. So now I'd like to turn to a local land use authority bill and preemption of local control bill that is still pending and may advance this session. And that is House Bill 1660 regarding accessory dwelling units or ADUs. HB 1660 would preempt local land use authority regarding ADUs, and therefore is inconsistent with Bellevue's 2022 adopted state legislative agenda. So Bellevue opposes this bill. Some of the parts that are of greatest concern to Bellevue about this bill are that, first of all, the bill authorizes no less than one attached ADU and one detached ADU on lots of 4,500 square feet or more in single family zones. So that would be 3 units total on a lot of 4,500 square feet across the city. So current city policy, as you know, only authorizes one attached ADU and no detached ADUs. The bill would also prohibit regulations on the size of ADUs relative to the primary dwelling, with some exceptions. And finally, the bill would eliminate owner occupancy requirements, although cities could still require the owner to occupy the ADU or primary dwelling for short-term rentals. So the goal behind the bill, as with the missing middle bill, is to increase affordable housing supply, which of course Bellevue agrees is a big need, an important need in our region. However, the bill does not include any of the requirements for the ADUs to be affordable. So again, this brings up the question of whether the bill would be meeting the goals, the stated goals of the legislation. And we, again, similar to the missing middle bill, Bellevue has concerns about placing 3 units, so significantly increasing density throughout the entire city, rather than taking Bellevue's approach to concentrate density near transit, for example, which could better serve increased density rather than increasing traffic throughout the city. So that is a bill that Bellevue continues to weigh in on and continues to discuss and work with legislators on. I picked those 3 bills to highlight for you tonight out of a list of dozens, if not 100, that we're monitoring and closely working with our partners at the Association of Washington Cities and our neighboring cities on. Mayor, that concludes my comments for tonight, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Any comments or questions from council? Not seeing anything. That means you did a really good job, Lacey Jane, in reporting out. So thank you very much. And thanks for all the hard work that you have done in representing and helping us represent our council legislative agenda in Olympia.
My pleasure, Mayor. Thank you.
So Mr. Miyake, what's next?
So, Mayor and council members, the next item on your study session agenda is a quarterly cultural and economic development update. And to provide that update, joining us this evening is Jessica Nato, our Chief Economic Development Officer, Philly Marsh, Economic Development Manager, as well as Edward Butterfield, our Public-Private Partnership Manager, all from Community Development. With that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Jesse.
Thank you, City Manager Miyake. Mayor, Deputy Mayor, members of council, we're looking forward to tonight's quarterly report on economic development. As we bridge from the earlier kudos for Kate Behrens, want to note that Kate was a major stakeholder in developing the economic development plan, whose progress we're reporting on tonight. She was a key advisor for all of us as we developed the plan that was passed in the fall of 2020. So with that, next slide, please. Tonight's presentation is for information only. Philly, there we go. Tonight's presentation is for information only, though there is some crossover between our economic development report and the next item on the agenda, which is the proposed amendments to the noise code, and we'll go into detail on those in a moment. Next slide, please. And then as we think about the broad story of tonight's agenda, I want to note for council that one of the big things that you'll hear about tonight is tourism. And in some ways, from an economic development perspective, 2022 is the year of tourism, as a lot of the policies that were laid out in the economic development plan really will come to the fore this year as we lay the foundations for improving tourism in the coming years, particularly as you'll hear our historical reliance on business-related travel, which has been slower to return, continues to mean our tourism industry is looking for some additional support. And I think we're laying all the right foundations to help them make 2022 and beyond even brighter for visitors here in Bellevue. And with that, I'll turn it over to Philly.
Thank you, Jesse. So over the first year of implementation of our ED plan, we have made great strides in all chapters while balancing continued COVID response and immediate business needs. Within the first year of the plan's 5-year implementation period, work has begun or been incorporated into the ongoing operation of 58% of the strategies and tactics within the plan. We have new staff on board that has brought new energy, especially in the creative economy, with our new community arts manager, who you heard from last month, Lori Hoffman, as well as capacity building with our new P3 manager, Edward Butterfield, who you will meet tonight to hear about the launch of our retail study. Our small businesses and entrepreneurship ecosystem continues to strengthen and grow by working with partners within the city and throughout the region. And we will soon have a new workforce specialist to focus on the implementation of our workforce chapter. From an unemployment recovery perspective, the end of the year continued to see drops in unemployment to under 3%. While this is seen as a great sign of recovery, we are starting to hear about labor shortages affecting our businesses across all sectors and creating challenges for recruiting and retaining workers. That new workforce specialist will be tasked with optimizing the connection between our residents, our education and training providers, and our employers to mitigate this challenge and help our residents realize their full potential. Talent attraction was also a need that we saw through our 2021 business survey findings. Continuing to position Bellevue as a destination of choice for in-office experiences and enticing employees and activity back will be a common theme in 2022. This slide represents some of the findings of our business relations program as seen through our biennial business survey. In short, Bellevue continues to have a business-friendly and strong economy that doesn't go unnoticed by our business community. Now, while these are great marks, we know that there's areas for improvement and we can't rest on our laurels. It's imperative that we continue to work with our partners both within Bellevue and across the region to provide superior service to our businesses. Examples of this include partnering with the Chamber for Crossroad Business Walks, partnering with our neighborhood liaisons team for our business outreach, and the importance of building stronger relationships with our community-based organizations for culturally competent delivery of business assistance. It's also important, and something that we will be focusing on in 2022 is building relationships with businesses through a district-based approach. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Jesse to talk about one of our business districts.
Thank you, Philly. One of the interesting intersections between tourism and arts here in Bellevue is our work to develop the Bell-Red Arts District, which really means to bring the existing creative activity that's happening in the neighborhood, elevate it and bring it more to the fore, with the goal of making the Bell-Red neighborhood a regional and hopefully a national destination for the arts and the creative economy. As we're looking at the year ahead, there are a couple of key things that we're working on to help really accelerate the development and the understanding of Bell-Red as an arts-oriented neighborhood. This was one of the key strategies called out in the economic development plan. And as we've looked at the different paths ahead, we've engaged a consultant to help us develop the key steps and help us engage with the community to help really cement the arts district. In the next coming months, you'll hear some more about the market study that we're launching with a group called ArtSpace, which will study the need for housing for artists and creative space for arts supporting activities, which again will help bring in additional visitors and create a higher quality of life for Bellevuers who are looking for more creative outlets. We'll be launching a mural pilot program in the Bellevue neighborhood with the support of one of our larger employers here in the community. If that project is successful, then we will scale it out to citywide opportunities, but we're really looking to target the Arts District first to help create some additional identity and recognition for that particular neighborhood. So you'll see some of those murals hopefully start to get deployed towards the end of 2022. And then another key piece for this year is working with our consultants and partners to convene a stakeholder group specific to the Arts District. One of the key things that we found in our work with the community and our various consultants is that there at the moment is no organized group similar to the BDA, which helps us make downtown a great place. We're hoping that this initial stakeholder group may eventually evolve into an organization similar to the BDA that helps manage, market, and provide additional support for the Arts District. And a lot of the work that I'm laying out will be done at the staff level in partnership with our external organizations. We found that many of the key policies are in place to help support the Arts District, and really it's about getting folks around the table to help begin implementing specific ideas. One area where we may return to the council later this year would be to help provide some specific and more defined boundaries for the Arts District. When we speak about the Arts District specifically, we're hoping to create a more compact definition of that within Bellred, and that would help us as we look to state and federal grant opportunities to help accelerate the work in the neighborhood. And one area that bridges from the Arts District to our other work around the economic development plan is the upcoming citywide retail study. And I will hand it over to Edward to talk about that particular project.
Great, thank you, Jesse. As Jesse mentioned, we'd like to provide an update on the retail study. This is a key implementation step of the economic development plan. And our goal is to launch the study in 2022. The preliminary scope that we're still drafting is really broken up into subcomponents. The first one is a retail market analysis, and we really want to look at high-level economic data and really understand the major impacts that COVID has had on our retail businesses in the last 2 years. We also want to look at gaps in retail services in Bellevue. The other component is really district capacity building. This goes back to us really fostering the creation of business district associations and organizations in Bellevue. Next, we want to look at land use code. We can always think of ways to encourage the preservation of our existing spaces and create new spaces that are really suitable for small businesses. We'd really like to look at our land use code and see where we might be able to change and create more flexibility for existing and new developments. And then equity, we want to preserve, grow, and foster our diverse retail businesses, and this is an opportunity to look at how to support that effort. And then finally, auto service. We are seeing some pressures on our auto services here, and we really want to retain and expand our dealerships and really support those ancillary services. So the three broad uses for the study, and that we'll be using this for as possible land use actions as we talk about land use code. We also, as staff, will be using this information to market and our recruitment efforts. And then finally, we really see this as sharing this information with our brokers and our real estate community to understand what's viable going forward with retailers. And finally, the steps that we'll be going through this year. In March, I'll be spending some time with the staff on meeting with our stakeholder community and really get their feedback on what they would like to see in the study. And then in May, we'll be back to the council for an update with a little more details on the scope. And then July, potentially June or July, issue RFP for a consultant to help us with that study. So very excited about this effort in 2022. So I'll turn it over to Philly and Jesse. Thank you.
Thanks, Edward. So both further development of the Bellred Arts District as well as the District Development Foundation that will be set through the retail study will help to support the recovery and growth of our tourism industry. 2021 was a roller coaster of a year for our tourism industry. We had a sweet spot there in July, but then unfortunately with the Delta variant followed by the Omicron variant, the fall and winter months continued to be a struggle. Many conventions that were scheduled for Q1 of this year have been pushed out for Q2, but things hopefully continue to look up. With that, many of our efforts in 2021 will be focused on helping our tourism industry rebound. We have the Rock and Roll Marathon coming to Bellevue in September. Back in Q4, staff worked with Visit Bellevue to assist in the attraction of that event. And then recently, community development led a study mission with select members of the Bellevue Special Events Committee to go to Arizona to see a behind the scenes, hands-on experience of the event in real life. The Bellevue staff was able to shadow their city counterparts and witness the operational detail of the event. It was an invaluable experience, and these lessons learned and best practices are being incorporated into our event here in September. Route development is currently taking place through the Special Events Committee, and we are now planning for corporate and community engagement opportunities. We hope to have some information posted on that within the next few weeks. The benefit of the Rock and Roll event is already being realized. Visit Bellevue reports a handful of calls each week with participants coming to run the race and looking for other things to do in the city. We also are working on the tourism promotion area. Progress continues with over 80% of petitions signed, and we're currently working on the development of an ILA with the city of Redmond. Additionally, we have the noise code amendments. And these are really to support the smaller scale events within our city. So a constant theme that has been heard through many of our recent planning efforts was the desire for more vibrancy and community connection through small art and cultural activations, as well as the community gatherings. You can see this feedback within our economic development plan focus groups, great neighborhood planning, grand connection, destination development plan, and even the recent neighborhood gathering event on the comp plan. At the same time, we were hearing from some of our stakeholders that there were some barriers in creating that vibrancy and community connection due to some city restrictions. Many of our art and business organizations have cited as barriers, and then also working with the neighborhood team, we learned about the challenges from a resident and community connection perspective. Many neighborhood block parties that want to take place on a holiday like the 4th of July or Labor Day couldn't have a neighborhood family band perform with amplified sound. So after a permit pathway analysis, we discovered that for small events under 500 people that don't go through the Special Events Committee, the noise code currently restricts amplified sound after 5 p.m. as well as on Sundays and holidays. So the amendments are really strictly limited to extending when amplified sound can take place in order to better support the neighborhoods and organizations that want to bring activities and vibrancy to our community. By extending those hours past 5 p.m. after work activities can occur that bring energy to Bellevue and support Bellevue being a destination of choice for employees. Additionally, with rush hour activations of public space, the influx of employees coming to Bellevue will be enticed to stay in the city longer, which will result in support for our small businesses that are still recovering, as well as increased tax revenue. We're hoping to see some of these changes take place so we can before the summer months, so we can take advantage of the summer to assist with tourism recovery. An application and permit will still be required, and that will help us be able to track and monitor any issues that may arise. And following this presentation, as Jesse mentioned, you'll hear more details from Development Services with the request to initiate this work. Back to Jesse.
And to close us out, we always love to leave the council with a little preview of what's next. And for tonight, a lot of what we talked about will be coming back to the council or be seen in developing in the community in the coming months. On the Rock and Roll Marathon, we'll be engaging with the community to help make sure that that particular marathon is a Bellevue-centric experience and a one-of-a-kind marathon within the larger portfolio of Rock and Roll. We'll be launching our workforce pilot program, helping to connect Bellevuers to reskilling and other resources as they re-enter the workforce or upskill. And we'll hope to have some information, some initial report back to council later this year. the noise control amendment work, and then in Q2, we'll be back to the council with some information on a proposed interlocal agreement to help enable the tourism promotion area that will enable additional resources to help our visitor economy. We'll be kicking off that citywide retail study and more data later this year on the art space study as we analyze the necessary housing and commercial spaces to help make the creative economy here in Bellevue really shine. So with all of the work that's been mentioned tonight, with the improved noise code, with additional events happening across the city, with an emerging arts district, and with more information on the changing nature of retail, Bellevue is really positioning itself to be able to say hello to new faces and hello again to returning faces later in 2022 and into 2023 and beyond, in a way that will create a lot of memorable experiences for those folks who are coming to enjoy everything that Bellevue has to offer. And with that, we will open it up for questions.
Great. Thank you all for the excellent presentation. I just want to remind council that our next study session item is to drill a little deeper into this noise ordinance, so we can save questions on that for the next study session item. But does anybody have any comments or questions on this? I see Deputy Mayor Muenhouse, Councilmember Barksdale, Councilmember Stokes, Councilmember Zahn. So go ahead and start us off, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, thanks for the great presentation. Always good to get a nice update on what's going on with economic development. Just a couple of questions based on your report tonight. So actually, I think it was Mr. Butterfield, you mentioned about the stresses on the auto services. Can you dive a little bit deeper on what that is? What are those issues as relates to auto services?
So I can tackle that first, Deputy Mayor, and then invite Edward to share some additional information. Some of that just has to deal with some of the changing nature of development in Bellevue. We have some auto dealers that are looking for relocation sites, as their current sites are being contemplated for vertical development or mixed use development. So it's not an overwhelming issue. There are just a couple of tweaks we want to take a look at to see and make sure that we've got the appropriate amount of space and land use opportunities for those dealers to remain in Bellevue and associated services.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you for that. On the half marathon, and I think some of this may have been mentioned during the first presentation on this, but can you just remind me what we're looking at in terms of the economic impact to the half marathon, to the city of Bellevue, in terms of number of hotel rooms that will be occupied, or overall impact to our restaurants and bars, et cetera? What is it similar to the one that you just experienced down in Arizona? But I'm also curious the number of runners that'll be participating in.
Billy, could you share some information?
Yeah, we should be getting an early update on registration numbers, but it's currently anticipated for about 8,000 runners. The Arizona one had 10,000 that actually ran in the race. With that 8,000 runner, the economic impact projections were about 4,500 room nights and close to 5 million in total economic impact, if I'm remembering correctly from that presentation.
Great. Thank you so much. And then districts. So going forward with that, Jesse, are we going to be creating districts all over the city? And then is it going to be based on use or based on location? Or it sounded like there was a greater plan for districts throughout the city, or are we just honing in on a couple of districts, such as the Bell Red Arts districts? Because it sounds to me like that's where you were going with that, but I might be wrong.
You're correct, Deputy Mayor. So the work that we're talking about is influenced by the economic development plan. So it'll be working in our emerging mixed-use neighborhoods like Bell Red, Crossroads, Factoria. They're really business-centric neighborhoods that are adding housing to help bring those stakeholder groups together and help them market the neighborhood, make sure the environment is correct for retail, do the marketing and other special events that help give those areas some additional character and draw in visitors and provide higher quality of life for Bellevuers.
Okay, so the district is based on really the neighborhood. It's not necessarily what's in the neighborhood necessarily, but just the area is the district. So
correct.
Thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Councilmember Barksdale.
All right, thank you. Really appreciate the presentation, and I'm excited about the I think you called it vibrant. I call it nightlife. I'm excited about more of that nightlife coming. A couple of questions on the retail study. One question on the retail study, and then I have another question. How does not to get too in the weeds, but how does the study and the methodology, I guess, speak to opportunities to engage mom and pop shops to understand their challenges specifically? And just to add to that, mom and pop shop owners that are maybe underrepresented in Bellevue, how are we working to get input from them?
So I'll start off, Councilmember Barksdale, and invite Edward to share a little more. So we definitely are looking at, want to include in the scope the work on mom and pop, individual, single location type of establishments. We're hearing from the council and from the community that those are the types of businesses that they're hoping to see more represented in Bellevue going forward. So part of the consultants' work will be to help us understand what are some of the challenges and barriers in the existing market. We know Bellevue is expensive, but are there other barriers that might be keeping those types of businesses and those owners from coming forward? Edward, is there anything you'd want to add to that?
Sure, and I think one of the things we'd be looking at with the consultant is to have an equitable engagement plan as part of their scope, where they would demonstrate any language or other that they are reaching out with staff for those underserved businesses, and even to the point that we'd be keeping track of any statistics or any other additional information to demonstrate that. So that is one thing we'll embed into the scope of work.
And thank you for that. Just to clarify, does that mean we will also engage business owners who are underrepresented in Bellevue, who are outside of Bellevue as well as part of this retail study? Because I think it's difficult to understand that perspective if we're only looking in Bellevue and they're not represented, if that makes sense.
We will be engaging with business owners, getting the perspective from those who are not currently operating in Bellevue. Yes.
Second or last question, on the business relations piece, how many respondents were there? And then I was curious about for the 67% and the 68%. Of course, that is dependent on the number of respondents, how impactful that is. What were contributing factors? They're above 50% for sure, a little lower though than maybe desired for the likelihood of recommending doing business in Bellevue and recommending Bellevue as a vibrant arts and cultural destination. So if you don't have those, I'm happy to get those as a follow-up, but was just curious sort of what contributed to those numbers.
Sure, and I'm happy to follow up with that. We have details and we can go back on the exact numbers. I think we had 742 respondents, which represented just under 10% of our active business licenses for the year. But I can provide a detail of those responses and then how they've moved up, because a couple of them actually had significant bumps up to our previous survey.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Stokes.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, this is to me very exciting. As we talked about this before, and to answer to a certain extent the Deputy Mayor's question, which is a good one, because we always have to keep in terms, the whole city is involved. But we've been talking about arts and cultural center in Bellevue for a long time, and it's because that's actually where a lot of the arts and particularly people who were creative arts and making things were there. So it's a great thing because we're already advanced in that area, and once this whole thing gets put together, it's easier to transfer and go to the other areas in the city. So I think that's a good thing to understand, that this is a citywide thing, but it's starting in the arts district here. The other thing I want to comment on, and this is very exciting, and we again have some basis for being hopeful on this, is a stakeholder group. One of the things that we did on East Rail from the very beginning was put together a strong stakeholder group that helped financially and other ways. And so we again have had a kind of proof of the pudding thing. And one of the interesting things is Greg Johnson, who happens to be connected with the Bellevue area, was very pivotal and important in the East Rail functioning of the stakeholder group as well. So again, what we're doing is really good, good business, good city approach on things, and staff is just doing a fantastic job. We're working on things that we've been trying to put together for a long time, a lot of experience, a lot of things we've tried, worked on. So we had to, kind of looking at this. So we're actually putting it all together now and going forward. So again, from a whole city perspective, this gives us great hope that once that we get this going, this can be expanded and we will have arts and cultural activities across the city. And, downtown's a big part too. So it's kind of a really pilot in a sense, but it's something I'm just so excited we're pushing this forward, and it's bringing a lot of pieces together. And again, it goes back and validates the whole concept of the creative economy. And this is how we do that, how we make it work. So, a lot of questions we can talk about, but I think the presentation is very good. Staff's really online. The Arts Commission is working hard on this. Lori Hoffman is just a great addition to the team. So I think we're in a good spot to make this go forward, and looking forward to seeing all these the plans and stuff we're doing implemented. And I think council's going to be there to help you get this along. So thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Zahn.
Yes, thank you, and welcome, Edward, as new P3 manager. So I just wanted to say about the work that we're doing, a couple of comments and questions. On the Small Business Development Center, I see that we've exceeded all of our goals in terms of the receiving assistance and programming. I'm wondering though, when we look at the impact and the outcome, is that something we're measuring that those assistants have resulted in them staying in the city of Bellevue or increasing their revenues? So that's one of the questions that I have. And then when I think about the retail study, thank you. I didn't see in the packet the word equity, but I see in our PowerPoint presentation that equity is part of it. And I guess my question there would be, or just to amplify the message from Councilmember Barksdale about really understanding who's not here, why they're not here, understanding the future needs. We hear a lot from our BIPOC businesses that access to both the opportunity and capital are some barriers to success. So I'd like to really understand what are those barriers specifically related to equity and the small mom and pop shops and those that English may not be first language and have barriers to even know what's available. And then the Arts District Stakeholder Group and the Housing for Artists, same thing here. How do we make sure we're reaching out to those that are not in Bellevue because they can't afford to be right now? And so the BIPOC community, I'm also concerned about the LGBTQ community and whether they feel like Bellevue is a place where they belong and their art. And then lastly, I know we have, with the East Rail and the bridge, the Japanese internment art. I think that it's more than that. So I'd like to make sure that we're also grounded in looking at how we honor the Japanese internment and more art related to that that's part of our. Then is when we're talking about the ancillary services with auto, I'm actually wondering about things, small shops like seamstress, laundry, other ones where the margin might be very, very small from a profitability standpoint, how we're making sure that those that have already been pushed out have a space to come back, because we've certainly heard from our community that that's also a part of the fabric of a livable, vibrant city, is that we actually have those kind of services right in our city. And I'm concerned about their ability to pay retail rents at market. So both some comments and questions that I have there. Thank you.
Thank you, council members. I will address those again in reverse order. With the ancillary services, that will be something that we look at in the retail study. We do understand that some of those ancillary services or lower margin services are an important part of quality of life, making sure you can access your needs within your own neighborhood. And similarly, that you have the ability to have your own business within your community. So we will be looking at that. So we'll make sure that that is addressed in the scope. With regards to the Japanese American Commemoration Project, we continue to be engaged with that group. That work has largely been taken on by a community organization, so we are following their lead and are prepared to support additional sites as those opportunities come up. With the Arts District, yes, we are going to make sure that we're engaging with folks outside the community. The consultant that we'll be working with is a group called Art Space, which is a nationwide consultant. They have actually done several projects here in the Seattle metro area. And so they'll be using that network to help us understand Bellevue's relative strengths, our perception within the creative community, and any other barriers that may be present to maintaining and growing the creative presence here in the city. I think those were the big questions I heard. Did we miss any?
The one about the Small Business Development Center, I am curious about how you measure impact versus attendance.
And with that, I will look to Philly because she is much more familiar with those data points than I am.
Yeah, so what you're seeing in why we exceeded the goals was unfortunately due to COVID and just the vast need of assistance that was out there. So with the SBDC Center, one way that we kind of measure the outcomes is by numbers of jobs supported, if there's funding that they receive to be able to expand and grow their business. Same thing with our Business Impact Northwest. With Startup 425, the foundations course is kind of that 101. A lot of people coming with just an idea about a business, but how that has developed is there's actually, it's a kind of a pipeline or funnel where now with the Innovations Lab, that's where there's kind of a deep dive, eight-week course with businesses that are paired with a mentor, and they're really prepped for being able to receive funding and or take advantage of contracting opportunities. So there's a couple of testimonials I'm happy to share through the Startup 425 about some businesses growing their business 30%, receiving government contracts, et cetera. So those are some of the ways we measure that particular program. It's within the business growth of the end of that pipeline.
Okay, let's head on to Councilmember Lee, if you don't mind. Councilmember Lee?
Thank you. I'd like to follow up on a couple of things Councilmember Zhang mentioned. Then I have a couple of questions on my own. She talked about the commemoration of Japanese Americans in Bellevue. This is very important because Bellevue, used to be an area where a lot of Japanese Americans work here, farm here, lived here, and we know what happened. And so I think we need to remember, we need to make sure. And secondly, I want to extend that into other minority groups, and one of which is in Chinese American, obviously. The biggest minority group here now in Bellevue is probably Chinese Americans, and it's the Asian Americans. So I think we need to make sure that we don't forget. If you want to commemorate what our history is, and also what continues to be, to remember and to move forward, to encourage, continue what we do. I think that's something to include. So we don't want to neglect one and take care of the other. We want to be all inclusive. The second thing is with SBDC, good question. It's a U.S. Small Business Administration program primarily, and SBA is in Seattle, so we have to work with them closely. I'm really glad that you guys have been doing that very well, good. And but it's something that I think we need to collaborate with more closely. and add our need, and which is looking at metrics like Councilmember Zhang was suggesting, so that we know for sure, or there's a connection, what we're doing for our community and helping the people that really are needed. Ultimately, my question is, I'd like to know more about Bellevue Arts District. I know that Bellevue Corridor, once developed, has many, many intended purposes. It's very, it's very well planned, as we all know. It's one of the best planned project there is, and one of which is including all the purposely, intentionally planned things that we need to make it a great place to live. So arts and culture is included. And there's also some economic development activities, educational development activities. We talk about GIX, that's an entrepreneurial educational project with, which I think is still there. I don't think it's moving as much as what we want it to be. It's not as planned, but I think we should not ignore it. It's there, and it's part of what we need to emphasize. So I am interested in the Bellevue Arts District for sure. It's an important piece of Bellevue Corridor, very important. But I want to know what are we doing with the others, the rest of it. We have the ballet group, right? They have a location there. I'm not sure what happened recently. Of course, we pay attention to sound transfer, obviously, because light rail transportation is a key ingredient to make all these successful. But how about the other developments? We talk about maybe parks, we talk about various other things. But we need to also talk about land use. How do we encourage more economic development through encouraging and developing other uses? Because if we don't have the population, if we don't have the business, if there are people living there, arts and culture is not going to happen, right? So I would like to have an overall comprehensive development plan to make sure that we don't just go on one and without the support, missing the other piece, and then so well we didn't make it work or it does not work. But then we have to know why, So I think it's important. Let's do a more comprehensive economic picture, and then all the pieces. I would like to know how they fit and how it works. How can we make it eventually all work together? And as you know, Greg Johnson was a big piece of it. He started the Spring District, but it's more than that, and it has to do with housing, with living, with other amenities, with businesses. You mentioned about
really, can you please?
So anyway, so that's really my comment. Just to also last thing to mention is automobile. You mentioned what is it? I thought we already have a plan. We relocate them somewhere and so on. But likes of this other things that we need to be talking about. So I really like to see a bigger, overall, more comprehensive plan for what you're talking about. I like all the individual pieces, but I like to see the bigger picture. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Lee. As our work continues to follow the Bell Red Plan, which is largely guiding the transformation of the Bell Red neighborhood, many parts are going very well. The arts district that we've called out tonight, as you're saying, is just one small portion of the larger Bell Red community, and it's one area that has been that has had more difficulty succeeding in the current market environment. So that's why we are placing additional emphasis on the creative district for the moment, as the rest of the neighborhood continues to develop very well.
Great. Okay, thank you. We're going to take a break here. It is 7:25. We will regroup at 7:35. Mr. Miyake, would you like to introduce the next study session item?
Sure, Mayor. The next study session item is the council initiation of work on the Bellevue City Code Amendment regarding sound amplification. You just heard about the need for this code amendment. from the Economic Development team. And joining us this evening is Liz Stead, our Interim Development Services Department Director, and Christina Gallant, Senior Planner, both from the Development Services Department. I'll go ahead and turn it over to them to tee this further up and for them to describe and to respond to council questions. So Christina, I think you're gonna go ahead and do the presentation if I'm correct.
Thank you, City Manager Miyake. This is Liz. I'm actually going to start out and then we'll pass it on to Christina.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, my apologies.
That's okay. Good evening, Mayor Robinson, Deputy Mayor Noonhouse, and council members. I do want to thank you for having us here tonight to provide the council with information regarding a proposed Bellevue City Code amendment. This is being brought forward in response to a request from the Economic Development Division, as Jesse spoke to earlier. The proposal is very narrowly focused, and it does respond to requests by our business community and our other community members to revise the noise control code. I am joined tonight by Nick Whipple, our Code and Policy Planning Manager, and Christina Gallant, our Senior Planner. Christina is going to provide a short presentation to council, and then the three of us will be available for any questions related to this code amendment. Christina?
Thank you, Liz. Good evening. So as mentioned, we are here this evening to seek direction to initiate a city code amendment related to noise control to expand exemption days and hours for amplified sound. There we go. And just a brief presentation today. I will be building on some of what Jesse and Philly shared with you during the update. So we'll provide a little more background specific to our current code for noise control and amplified sound equipment, then present our objectives at this stage for the proposed set of amendments. We'll also provide our proposed engagement process, and then finally bring it back to the direction we're seeking. So first, a little context. The proposed amendments concern one specific path for using sound amplification equipment in the city. So in order to do so, you do need to have a permit, and the proposed amendments would affect small events, so those fewer than 500 attendees. Larger events are considered special events and have a separate process. These events can't be located in parks. There is a separate process the Parks Department manages for dealing with events and sound equipment within parks. In addition, in order to obtain a permit, it must be with the property owner's permission, either the applicant or in partnership with the applicant. And as well, you must provide the location where the equipment will be used, its description, and the time it will be in use. So for eligible permittees, we have several criteria to keep in mind within our current code. And again, this is for the use of sound amplification permit only. So as Philly mentioned, there is no amplification currently allowed on Sundays or holidays. In addition, on the days where it is allowed, it is only permitted between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. It also can't take place more than 4 days per week in a given location. We have some decibel limits as well that define the maximum limits that neighboring properties can receive from the source of the sound. And those vary depending on the land use district. So they are lower limits in our single family districts and the highest limits in industrial districts, for example. Our quiet zone prohibitions still apply, even with the permit process. Those are very limited, however. And there are additional protections for schools and hospitals that may be neighboring impactees. So on to the amendments themselves. As mentioned, this is a focused proposed set of amendments that are really intended to help facilitate those neighborhood-oriented events and after-work activations that called for in our economic development plan. And some of the most significant barriers that have been shared with regard to our noise code for these types of events would be removing the ban on Sundays and holidays for sound amplification equipment, and then also looking at extending the permitted hours. And with that, we do, of course, can differentiate between weekdays and weekends as we think about extending those. Otherwise, other limits would remain with our current permit process. And we do want to reinforce that this would only impact sound amplification equipment for small events. It would not change our regulations for other sources of noise, like construction noise or leaf blowers, noisy equipment, that sort of thing. We have a definition in the code for sound amplification to get at what that means. And on to the engagement process. So the impetus for these amendments really came from the Economic Development Department's work as part of the planning process, but we have some additional engagement proposed moving forward. Broad notification through the neighborhood news, cultural and economic development newsletter, also reaching out with direct engagement to representatives, residents, events, cultural organizations, and the business community to share what's being proposed and get feedback. We also have an online presence with a city webpage set up to share progress and provide contact information. And with that, I will pass back to Liz.
Thank you, Christina. So as Christina noted, tonight we are requesting that the council consider initiating a Bellevue City Code amendment to the Noise Control Code to expand exemption days and hours for amplified sound. Regarding some of our next steps, I do want to note that we will be back in the coming weeks for a study session. And at that time, we would have a set of proposed amendments for your consideration if you choose to initiate the code amendment this evening. So with that, Mayor Robinson, I will pass this back to you for any further questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Good presentation. Are there any comments or questions? I see the Deputy Mayor has his hand up. Councilmember Barksdale, Councilmember Zahn, Councilmember Lee. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, just a couple of quick questions, but thank you so much for the presentation this evening and generally very supportive of moving this forward. Two quick questions. I don't know if you heard the oral communications earlier this evening, but Colin May, I believe was his name, had some concerns or thought we shouldn't focus so much on the amplification. Any thoughts on that comment during oral communications or the amplified sound concern that he had or thought that we should disregard?
Yes, thank you for that question. At this time, we were planning to very narrowly focus this amendment on the days and hours so that we could get this work done very quickly. Certainly, Council wishes us to consider more analysis around noise limitations and what is an acceptable noise limitation. We'd be happy to do so for your consideration.
Okay, thank you, Liz. Yeah, I think that would be a good thing for us to consider. And then my only other point was on legal holidays. I'm assuming maybe in the ordinance or the code now it says legal holidays, not federal holidays, but the language is not all that inclusive because it makes me think there are illegal holidays then, which I don't think there are. But can you just help me understand, and especially everybody who's watching, understand the definition of a legal holiday as it relates to the code right now?
Yes, Christina, would you like to field that question?
Sure. Yeah, that's the current language used in our code, but generally it correlates well with federal holidays. We have them defined in the code. So generally it's the big ones, 4th of July, Thanksgiving, that sort of thing, but there is a list.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Councilmember Barksdale.
All right, thank you. So quick question on one comment and then a question. The comment is I get targeting this to make sure it's something we can get through quickly. I guess my concern is what is that experience going to be for people trying to host events? I mean, I don't think it's going to be intuitive. Let's say that, oh, I can have sound amplification in a parking lot, let's say, of a private business, but not in a park. And so I wonder if I think it would be valuable to look at this from an event organizer's perspective and figure out how to address this in a way that's a bit more seamless for event organizers. And I guess my question in terms of the locations, so what would be the locations? Does this cover, if not parks, does this cover streets, or is it just private business locations?
Christina, would you like to respond to that one?
Sure. So I do want to clarify first that there is a path to use sound amplification in the parks. It just goes through a separate review process with some separate code standards. So this would kind of get at other cases. But yes, this would be available on private property. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. Got it. So in that other avenue is a special events committee, is that right? For the permit for the parks or public space?
So the public, I'll just field that one real quickly. The special event permits are those events that are over 500 people. So they're the really big ones where we're including the right of way and noise impacts, potential safety, police may be involved, that sort of thing. Parks does have a separate process for smaller events that are in the parks. Say a community group that wants to have an event in the park, they have their own process to allow noise and also the use of the park.
Got it. So if it's smaller than 5 people and smaller than 500, maybe it's like not enough for, maybe it's a picnic, right? Like, or a volleyball event, which a lot of people play volleyball at the park. If they want to amplify sound, what's there? Because they don't have to get a permit to play volleyball. So if they want to amplify sound, what does that look like?
Generally, that would be associated with some sort of request to use the park facilities. So many times what we see is if there is a group gathering, they will want to use one of the covered patio areas or some of those facilities, at which point they would be initiating a permit at that time.
Okay, I'll leave it there. I just love for us to think about ways that we can streamline this a bit more too. Thanks.
Absolutely, thank you.
Councilmember Zahn.
Yes, thank you. I'm really intrigued by this work because I do think it's important to take a look at our codes and update them for those well-intentioned restrictions and really understand how it might be impacting the community. I was actually thinking that if this was something we would have maybe realized, this could have been something that during COVID, where being outside distance would have been a really great thing to do, that this would have been possible on Sundays and holidays and the evenings. So my question is similar to some of the others that have been asked about, it can be confusing about if this, then that. So as part of this work, my hope is that we'll also have some FAQs and maybe some a flow diagram so people really understand what's going on. But I am wondering about the narrow focus of just these 2 items and what was the name of it, the way that the noise was developed as the main criteria. So I feel like we are asked to move quickly, which I think it's important because days are getting longer, weather's hopefully going to get drier and warmer, so we want this in place. But I'm also wondering if we are too narrow in our focus, and that if we initiate this, which I support initiating, that we don't create a little more latitude for you to work on this and come back with something that, as you look at this, if there's a natural improvement area, that you would bring that back to us and not just say, oh, it doesn't fall in these 2 things, so it's out of our discussion. So can you help me with that part?
Yes, of course, and I appreciate that comment, Councilmember Zahn. We certainly would want to go back and look at this more thoroughly and bring that back to you with recommendations, and certainly where we see any opportunities to either assist the public through FAQs, helping them understand what the process is, and if there are any other add-ons. Certainly, we do see this as a staged approach. This is one aspect of the noise control code. There certainly could be other phases in the future as well. And that part of that is the issue identification that you're discussing right now.
So the way this request is worded, is there that opportunity for you to bring something back that you think would be important in addition to these two so that when we vote, we can incorporate it? If not, I'd like to make sure it's worded that way that allows that to happen.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think that what we could do is certainly at the study session, we could bring back if there were other items that we thought were corollary and would, work with this. Certainly, we would be happy to do that.
Okay, thank you.
City Manager, can I just ask you to weigh in a little bit on the process of adding things to this work? Is it something that we want to do as we do this work concurrently, or what's your recommendation?
Mayor, I'm going to refer that question to Mike Brennan, Deputy City Manager, if you don't mind.
Thank you, Ms. Miyake. So I think the idea with this targeted amendment was to be kind of strategic and quick in accomplishing the goal that kind of advances the economic development interest here, and that is allowing for these small community events to occur without the barriers that currently exist in the noise control code. Like anything, we can always scale up, but when we start scaling up and adding additional interests or changes to the list of things, then the work becomes more time consuming and takes longer to accomplish. And you start engaging broader community groups in the discussion. So as Liz was mentioning, what we'd like to do is try to keep this on point with the outcome that we're trying to get, and that is removing the barriers from these community events, recognizing that there are other parts of the noise control code that the council and the community may want staff to take a look at, and we can identify those for future kind of work plan discussions. But I would be careful. I would recommend at this point that we try to keep the scope narrow and accomplishable in the near term with the limited resources that we really got available to bring to this kind of work right now. But again, the council can provide staff any direction that you would like to provide, and we will pursue that. But that was the goal of tonight's or this particular recommended code amendment.
Thank you. Councilmember Lee.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to follow up on what was talked about just now. I support the intent of removing the barrier, as the economic development group, staff proposed. So it needs to be focused, except when what you do, you're eliminating all the barriers for everything else. It creates a confusion, which I'm concerned with. And in reality, I am, because it may also remove the barrier for neighborhoods. And, I can have a street party for my friends, of 25 people. We can have a big party at 10 o'clock at night. I think, in fact, some people have complained to me about recently, just some neighbor, some party in a swimming club, next door, and they were having loud music, some party. If they have amplification, they can go all night long. That it would be a concern. So how do we address, the specific interests of encouraging, legitimate public event? And, I agree, without spilling out and, allowing undesirable neighborhood impact to people who want to have a restful weekend and sleep at night. I mean, that's important,
And
so
also, I guess,
that's my concern.
Councilmember Lee, if I could also kind of say, maybe you could answer the question, Mike, of how this new amendment might impact neighborhood noise.
Well, so certainly this will allow for more expansive use of amplified sound in neighborhoods. So right now it is very constrained. You can't have amplified sound on Sundays. You can't have amplified sound after 5 p.m. That most of the events that are happening in the neighborhoods are generally happening on weekends, Saturdays and Sundays, and maybe a little bit later in the evening. Now, the code amendment will still have constraints, and that's what the staff will develop and come back with recommendations for council consideration. And it is about balance. It is about what Councilmember Lee's talking about. We want to let people enjoy peace and quiet on their property, while at the same time, we want to allow and encourage, active, engaged communities and community events that bring people together. So it is always a balance, and those are the recommendations we would bring back for council consideration.
Well, that's why it's just important, when you bring back to me, to the public, you have to be able to differentiate the two. You can't mix all together, because number one, it places extraordinary burden on staff. If it's not clear, you may allow a neighborhood party go wild, and we don't want that, okay? And so you want to be specific. What are we proposing? What are we approving? What are we protecting? What are we preserving? So I'm confused. I don't know that, and I would like to have that clearly before I can say, yeah, I approve the change in code. No, I want to know what I'm approving very clearly, specifically, with regard to the people who are very, very, we developed the code for a reason many years ago, because they are, it's important to them. They want to have whatever they requested in the code. Now, I agree, because of economic development, circumstances change, and we need to be flexible. And I just want to be sure it's clear, okay? It cannot be just stripe out one because of some changes and then have unintended consequence on the other one, because that's when we're going to get in trouble. So I like to hear that clearly, then I can, make my decision.
So just to clarify, we are giving direction for them to bring this back for a discussion. So it's helpful to give staff information on what you want to hear more about. So
I'm not giving, yeah, I think it's important for the council and the staff to understand we're not giving a carte blanche, say, hey, let's remove barriers, change the code. No, it's to revise the code to make it possible for economic development, okay, and maintaining.
Yeah. We understand you. We heard what you said. Okay, Council
I
Member
don't understand. Until you explained it, and I still need to make sure the public understand, so that we don't get all kind of email from them say we don't want to have noises in our neighborhood.
Okay, well, let's move on to Council Member Stokes so we can, and I see Council Member Barksdale has his hand up again. So I will comment after Stokes, and then we will go back around. Council Member Stokes. I don't think I hear you yet.
You're muted, Councilmember Stokes.
No, I turned it off again. I appreciate the comments that were just made, but I mean, that's what we do in anything we do. I hope we don't get into a pattern of, well, you say you're going to bring a thing back. I want to know about other things and how complicated it'll be and tell me and all this stuff. It gets it messed up in terms of focus on this. And I assume that staff will come back with analysis of this, and we're not just going to do something that's going to just blow the whole thing up because we didn't take it into account. So I'm hoping.
Are you talking to me, Council Member?
I'm just talking in general from other conversations, and I have a right to have my commentary. So I think all I'm saying is I'm just concerned that we're not going to get bogged down in things that are not really.
Well, instead of critiquing other people's comments, how about—
I'm not critiquing other people's comments. I mean, this is,
I'd like to hear—
Why would the bog down?
Hold on. Council members, I would just like to hear Councilmember Stokes' opinion on his own comment of what he'd like to hear from staff. Are you comfortable with what's being proposed here? Or would you like more information?
I'm comfortable with what's being proposed, and I assume that, well, hold on. What I would like to see is, I think you've set forth in a very straightforward way, the couple of things you're going to look at, and they're not part of anything else. I want to understand that. We're not having you're not proposing an overall look at all these pieces and how something might drop off or not. So you're looking on two particular focused things. And I think that's great. And I look forward to you coming back and we'll have those discussions. I do think that Councilmember Zahn has a good point. And it's that balance. I suspect that we're going to find out that we'll have some more interest in finding out and changing maybe some of the code. And, so then the question is, we do these two and how could we make these other effects? So we'll do those but I do hope we will keep an open mind in terms of now that this issue's come up, I suspect people are going to talk more about the pros and cons of changing the codes. And I hope you'll be kind of prepared for that. But I agree, bring forth these two, let's talk about that, and then have a conversation as it may come up on what else is changing, because the city's changing, it's bigger, neighborhoods are different and everything else. So I applaud you for looking at this, and I'm looking forward to a focused conversation on those two pieces, and then a broader conversation on, are there any other changes we need?
Okay, thank you. So I'll go ahead and comment, and we'll go back around, starting with Deputy Mayor and then Councilmember Barksdale, be your turn. So yes, I'd like to have you come back, staff, and bring this back with some more information on it. I'm assuming, you've talked about the robust community outreach and getting comments from them. So I'll be very interested to see what the feedback is from the community. I know we can't do this at the same time, but in my mind, the balance that I would like to see is, maybe we're going to allow more opportunities for sound where we live. But I think I would love to put on our agenda, and this is something that we'll have to discuss at the retreat, how do we look at other things that are causing a lot of noise in our neighborhood that maybe we could reduce at the same time? So leaf blowers and modified mufflers and things like that. So I know that that's not what you're talking about tonight, but just in my mind of keeping things in the balance, I hope at the retreat, I'll be bringing that up, and I hope we can have a discussion as to whether the council wants to make that part of our work plan next year. So I'm going to go, I will be supporting option one on here, but Deputy Mayor, do you have any more comments or questions?
No, I'm ready to move this forward. I don't have any additional questions. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Barksdale.
Okay, thank you. I do support this. I just want to say, I think one of the biggest challenges, and as y'all know, I'm from the East Coast and the South specifically, and we have a lot of barbecues, get-togethers, and it's something that creates an experience that if we could maybe put sort of the isolated perspective aside just for a bit, I think there's value in making sure that people are able to get together without having to worry about noise during reasonable hours. And so obviously that means like not at 11 or 12 o'clock at night, but I'm looking forward to staff bringing back what this would look like, and maybe even I appreciated the public comment about decibels, and just try to show what it looks like compared to everyday noises. I get reduction in other areas, but just to paint a picture, because I think it's I don't think it's a backyard gone wild situation, and it actually is just creates opportunity for people to get together and have fun and get to know each other. And I think it's important in any community that we have the flexibility to do that. So I appreciate this coming forward, and I support it, and just want to figure out ways that we can make that happen.
I like that request to put it into context. That's good. Councilmember Zahn, do you have any comments or questions further?
Yeah, I agree with Councilmember Barksdale's comments because I do feel like lots of community getting together in the backyard is around music and the ability to actually, so can we look at the output instead of the input is really the issue, because at the end of the day, the output is what is maybe creating some of the challenges with quote unquote noise. And so if we could focus on that instead of the input, I think that's really helpful. And so I'm just glad to move this forward, and I'm glad that this was identified as an issue. I didn't realize it was an issue. So thank you for bringing this to our attention.
Councilmember Lee, do you have any more comments or questions?
A quick one. I just want to emphasize I support this as described by the staff. And I just want to be sure, there's not a time to discussion yet. We're going to discuss it when it's brought back. But since it's brought up, I just want to be, we cannot control the output. When we have output that's not desirable, people are going to be up in arms. So the best we can do is do the best and hope for the best. Okay, we don't know what it may be. So we heard that. We need to be sure. We have to be considerate. We have to be respect other people, whether it be one person or not. It's important. So that's why the responsibility rests with the staff. I just feel that the staff needed some certainty. If you can handle it, take care of the public, that's all the better. But we just want to help you to make sure you have a certainty. Thank you, to make your job easier.
Okay, and Councilmember Stokes, did you have any more comments or questions? Okay, well, is there a motion to, staff, did you get the information that you need from the discussion?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, Mayor, I think we had some good direction to move forward and to look a little bit more at how it is tailored time-wise and so on, if there are any specifics on that, and also some more information around output versus input, and could we provide some context around what is the being permitted potentially with this code amendment.
Okay, sounds great. Is there a motion, Deputy Mayor?
Yes, Mayor, I move to direct staff to work on an amendment to Chapter 9.18 of the Bellevue City Code for future council action to expand exemption days and hours for amplified sound to better support smaller events and activations consistent with the Economic Development Plan.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, good. We have one more thing, Mr. Miyake, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor and council members. This is the fourth item on your study session agenda this evening, and it is the comprehensive plan periodic update initiation. In front of you is a request to initiate the update of the comp plan. Just by way of background, the state's Growth Management Act directs counties and cities to periodically update their comprehensive plans. The Bellevue's update, along with the other counties and cities in the Puget Sound arena, is due by June of 2024. With that, there are pieces here I know that we're going to describe to you with respect to the process as well as outreach. Joining us this evening is Emil King, Assistant Director for Planning, and Tara Johnson, Planning Manager for Community Development, all from the Community Development Department. And I'm not sure if there are others on the team, but with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Emil King to begin the presentation.
Thank you for the introduction, City Manager. Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and members of Council. Staff from the Community Development Department are here tonight to launch the periodic update to the city's comprehensive plan. This is a significant cross-departmental effort that will engage the community through a robust engagement strategy. It will also engage and use the expertise of all the city boards and commissions. Before we dive into the presentation, I wanted to offer up some introductory comments. The comprehensive plan document, what it says, and how it's formed from a process standpoint are very important to the city as a whole. This is an opportunity to bring the community together. It's an opportunity to reflect on both successes and challenges in the city, and to put together a well-thought plan for the future. The vision for the city and policy direction embedded in the comprehensive plan are foundational to the city. These policy statements and vision drive our quality of life, how we meet our equity outcomes, our economic development initiatives, how we seek a better jobs housing balance and provide housing opportunities for all, our access to parks and open space, how we get around on a day-to-day basis, and how we grow as a sustainable city. Next slide, please, Tara. Staff are seeking direction tonight from council to formally launch our periodic update of the comprehensive plan. Significant pre-launch readiness work and city participation at the staff and elected official level in regional planning efforts has brought us to this point. Next slide, please. Staff will be providing a presentation to council tonight focused on the following elements. First, we'll briefly go over the background of comprehensive planning in Washington State and growth management and review the structure of our current comprehensive plan. The next parts will cover the drivers for this plan update and highlight the emphasis areas of the scope. In the last sections, we'll provide an overview of the update process and review the community engagement strategy. And finally, we'll wrap up with next steps. I'd now like to turn things over to Tara Johnson, our comprehensive planning manager, to run through the presentation. She and I and other staff will be available at the end for any comments or questions from council.
Thank you, Emil. Good evening, Mayor Robinson, Deputy Mayor Neuenhuis, council members, and members of the public here. As Emil indicated, we're going to start off with a little bit of context on the significance of a comprehensive plan. So just wanted to touch on that, given that we're launching, hopefully launching this exciting endeavor. So as Emil indicated, the comp plan is of course tied to state requirements, also required under the Growth Management Act, which we plan under. The comp plan, of course, captures the vision for how we want to grow and for the future of Bellevue. It also sets policy that directs city actions and decisions, and of course, implementation of capital investments. The plan covers a 20-year horizon. And so right now we'd be planning for, with this periodic update, we'd be planning for up to 2044. A little bit on what our current plan incorporates. It's set up to where it's encompassed into 2 different volumes. Volume 1, of course, starts off with a vision for the city. It also includes a fair amount of various narratives, and the comprehensive plan, of course, is separated into various chapters or elements, as we call them. Each element has a series of goals and implementation policies. And in addition, Volume 1 of the comprehensive plan also has an overall map of land use designations for the city, or land use classifications for the city. Volume 2 includes sub-area, neighborhood area plans. A couple of those came to you for review and adoption last year as part of the Great Neighborhoods process. So we talked about some of the emphasis and the triggers from the regional requirements. So that is, of course, a driver for this update. State law and GMA requires that we update all jurisdictions that are planning under PSRC, the 4-county planning region, update their comprehensive plans every 8 years. This is actually a 9-year cycle. The last time we went through the update was 2015. And several council members have been involved in Vision 2050 development with the multi-county planning policies. So that certainly informs and provides some aspect of scope for our update, as well as the King County countywide planning policies and growth targets, which we came before you and provided you with a briefing on a few weeks ago. The other piece, as I said, the last time we updated the comp plan was 2015. A lot has changed within the city since that time. And so this is a really good opportunity to look at the comp plan and ensure that it aligns with the community's vision, what's happening currently, as well as aligning with updated council vision and priorities, which have been recently updated, a lot more recently than the last major update. So some of the aspects that we assume will be part of this based on council's updated vision includes housing affordability, climate resilience and sustainability, and of course, economic innovation. I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail on growth targets since we talked extensively about that a few weeks ago, but essentially that is going to be a major component of our comprehensive plan update is planning for the newly established growth targets for Bellevue. And that will cover a 20-year horizon. Little bit of a recap on growth targets. As I said, this is going to be a significant component of our update, along with other scoping pieces, which I'll be talking about shortly. Bellevue plays a very significant role in the region. Apart from Seattle, it's the other metropolitan job center, and of course, the job center on the east side. Downtown Bellevue has been designated a regional growth center by PSRC for some time, and we went through a recertification process in 2020. With this update, and that's reflective of our proposed and now adopted growth targets, we are aiming to achieve a 2-to-1 jobs housing balance. So that is 70,000 jobs and 35,000 housing units. As you can see from this table, we do not have capacity for 35,000 housing units. And that's based on current zoning. Also, just to note, it does not include the new zoning that went into effect with East Main. So that's just something to keep in mind. As part of this process, we intend to ensure that we're aligning with other initiatives. And so this will be a good opportunity to ensure that all our planning efforts are really synced up. A little bit on what our scoping pieces are. The update really focuses on 3 major areas. The first is growing housing to ensure that it's meeting the needs of all types of households, stages of life. The second area is sustainability and climate resilience. And the third is equity and ensuring that we make Bellevue a more equitable city. As we talked about just recently with the growth targets, we are planning for a large increase in housing units in order to achieve that 2-to-1 jobs housing balance. The update process will look at what kind of housing and what form this takes and where that's going to be located. Since we know we need a variety of housing types, this is a mandate from the CPPs, affordability levels and sizes. We'll need to really utilize a multi-pronged approach. And this really ties into our community engagement strategy. So we'll need to address how we're going to incorporate additional density within our growth centers, and also potentially missing middle that could be introduced in different areas of the city. The update could also include evaluating our existing system for our land use map designations and looking at opportunities to address and maybe changing those land use designations into broader categories, which would make for fewer required CPAs in a long-term process. The overall process, we anticipate covering a 2-year timeline. The deadline with the state is that we get this adopted by June of 2024. While that seems like a fairly long timeline, there's a lot to get accomplished within that 2-year timeframe. Something that's unique with this update, it includes an environmental impact statement. And so that's something that we would be incorporating into the process, something that we have not undertaken with the last couple updates. So the first phase is really going to focus on looking at our existing vision within the city, ensuring that it aligns with the council vision and priorities. Following that, we'll be developing land use alternatives as part of the EIS process. Those will feed into a draft EIS. And then a second portion of that is really detailed analysis on issues that will really inform our policy development. And then the next stage is, of course, going through the process where we're looking at our policies and coming up with policy language. And then the last phase is defining those policies, bringing them forward through the legislative process, both Planning Commission and City Council. A little bit on the community engagement strategy. So as I said, we cover a 2-year time frame. Of course, the majority of community engagement, really intense focus will be 2022 and 2023. The pending council direction to launch the effort will really start engaging with the community, and the first focus will, of course, be the vision. Later on this year, we're going to be using this concept of strategy teams to get stakeholder and lived experience. We're also going to be sending out a direct mail survey to all households. We're using with our equitable approach to community engagement, similar to the Great Neighborhoods process. We found a fair amount of success with cultural outreach assistance, so we're going to be employing that strategy as well. And of course, throughout the process, the various boards and commissions are going to be an integral part of the process, providing us with feedback. The Planning Commission, of course, takes the lead in providing policy recommendations to the council. Following that, we intend later on this year, we'll be developing the land use alternatives and really talking to the community about that. And then early next year or early 2023, we'll have a draft EIS potentially released, really looking at our various growth alternatives, and then we'll start the policy development mid-2023. So a little bit on our engagement approach. What we intend to do is use a variety of tools, so public engagement, survey. As I said, we're using strategy teams with different focus areas. One will be focused on equity, the other will be focused on sustainability, another one on placemaking, and then potentially a fourth on mobility and land use. We intend that engagement can occur from anyone that chooses to participate. Outreach will be used to build awareness of the planning process. We've already started that with some light touches. We did a presentation with the neighborhood leadership gathering and got a fair amount of attendance, so really started to get the word out. We intend to use cultural ambassadors as well as cultural outreach assistants that will assist us in spreading the word. And then following the official launch, we intend to do briefings with all the various boards and commissions who will be involved in the process. We'll also be providing you with opportunities. We'll do periodic briefings with both the various boards and commissions and council. But the intent is that we'll be coming to you at various points in the process and providing you with those briefings. Apologize, Mike went backwards. So a little bit on the various outreach activities. As I said, we intend to send out a mailed questionnaire fairly soon after our official launch. We already have our Engaging Bellevue website up, and this will be an opportunity for the public to ask questions. We're already providing input there. Right now, we're still trying to figure out how we transition from virtual to in-person meetings and events, given the latest orders from the governor. So those are things that we're very excited to be able to have some of our community engagement approaches, either in a hybrid form or in person. And as I said, really using an equity lens on our community engagement with cultural outreach ambassadors. We're going to have material translated into various languages, and then also have multilingual outreach with the help of our outreach ambassadors.
Tara, pardon me for interrupting. we have lost a few council members. Councilmember Lee is no longer in the meeting because he lost power. And I don't see Councilmember Zahn. And now I'm wondering if we have a quorum. Councilmember Robertson is sick and had to leave the meeting early. So Charmaine, I don't know if you're around, but if you can help us out and see if we still have a quorum, I'd appreciate it.
Yep, I'm going to do a quick roll call. That's the easiest way. So Mayor Robinson, obviously you're with us. Deputy Mayor Newenhouse, are you here?
I am.
Okay, and Councilmember Barksdale, are you here?
We don't hear you.
I'm back. My power went out.
Okay, I think everybody.
understand.
Yeah, I think that's what happened. That's what happened to Councilmember Lee as well, and I'm sure Councilmember Zahn. So you may continue with roll call if you want, but let's see if we can get Councilmember Zahn and Councilmember Lee back on the meeting.
Yeah, so Councilmember Lee is not here. Councilmember Robertson is sick. Councilmember Stokes, are you here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't you see me?
Councilmember Lee just joined.
Okay.
Councilmember Zahn is joining as well. Thank you. Sorry, I heard
So
you
we're
had a power outage, everybody. So
Yeah,
we
sorry, I
probably
just,
lost half our audience as well.
I just got back on.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
I have to rejoin, unfortunately. Yeah.
I'm
Janice,
actually on my,
I can't hear you very well, Janice, or Councilmember Zahn, I'm sorry.
I'm actually on my phone. Let me turn up my volume.
Okay. Tara, why don't you take it from the top of this?
Better?
Yes, your connectivity is not great, but we see you and I think you can hear. Tara, why don't you, if you don't mind, take it from the top on this slide?
Certainly. I was gonna just ask Mayor Robinson if there's, I wasn't watching to see the council members, so I'm not sure if you would like me to go back and repeat any portions of the presentation, but happy to do that, or when we go into questions, happy to bring the slides back up too.
Well, I think this is the one that everybody lost. So if you could start over on this slide,
Certainly.
routine, that'd be great.
Perfect. So we wanted to just touch on the various ways we're going to be engaging with the community. Once council provides us with direction to launch the effort, we are intending to have a mailed questionnaire that's going to be sent out to all households. Our Engaging Bellevue website has been up and is live. It provides an opportunity for the public to ask questions and provides us with input. We intend to have a statistically valid survey as part of the process. And as I said, we're going to be transitioning between in-person and virtual events now with the latest information on being able to, with the mask mandate being removed, there's greater opportunity for us to return to in-person events. And then our approach really is utilizing an equity lens on community engagement. And so some of the techniques we're using our cultural outreach ambassadors, which we used through the Great Neighborhoods process, ensuring that we have material translated into various languages, and really having our cultural outreach ambassadors working with our various diverse groups to ensure that they're getting the information and hopefully getting them more involved in our overall engagement approach over the next 2 years. So next steps, we're here this evening, of course, to obtain council direction to launch the periodic update process. We'll be working with the community over the next several months on looking at our vision, the vision within the comp plan, ensuring that it aligns with the council vision and priorities. We'll also be doing briefings with the various boards and commissions, and really utilizing that feedback. And as I said, various outreach efforts with the community at large, as well as our strategy teams. So we're going to be really a multi-pronged approach to engagement. So we intend to come back to you in the summer and provide you with an update the feedback that we've heard, as well as draft vision and our approaches to land use alternatives as well. So with that, we're requesting direction to initiate work on the comprehensive plan periodic update, and that I'll turn things back to the mayor.
Thank you very much. And thank you everybody for getting back on so quickly after you got bumped off. Okay, so I would actually like to start with a motion so that we can stay on track here. So Deputy Mayor, could you please make a motion?
Certainly, Mayor, I can do that. I move to direct staff to initiate work on the comprehensive plan periodic update.
Second.
And then we'll open the floor for discussion about the motion. So does anybody have a comment or a question? I see Councilmember Barksdale. Go ahead.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Just a few, thanks for the presentation. Looking forward to this update. Just a few things there. Bear with me for a second. I think it would be similar to my comment during the cultural and economic development update, looking to engage people who are underserved in Bellevue. So however we can best do that, I guess just the underlying theme here is if we just look at people who are in Bellevue today, we're not able to really account for people who are not able to live in Bellevue today. And so just want to make sure we're doing that in general. In the survey, just want to make sure that as we, I noticed that you said statistically valid, so I do want to make sure it's representative on many fronts, but also including race, so that we can segment the results and understand what that looks like, what the results look like by race and other dimensions of diversity, but I assume that those will be there because they've been there in other surveys. I'm going to keep this brief. The outreach assistance, I didn't see that we have any for the Black and Indigenous community, and that's also a hard, I think historically we've had difficulty getting input from Black and Indigenous community, so it'd be great if we could have outreach assistance there as well. And I'll leave it there for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor, followed by Councilmember Stokes.
Thank you, Mayor. Great presentation, Thara. I really appreciate that. And Emil, great job. I really like the approach and the process and the overall strategy on this. I think you laid it out really well and very thoughtful. So I'm looking forward to going through this 2-year process with you and everything that it might bring forward. I think I just want to really mention 2 different things. One on EBCC. I don't think you had that in the presentation there, Thara, but what's the role that the EBCC will play in this process? Can you talk to that just briefly? And then my second question, well, it's more of a request, and that's with engagement. This is a big deal. It's a big process. I just want to make sure that, and I really appreciate you calling out those specific examples in terms of the outreach and the engagement. But I also want to make this as easy as possible for our residents as well to weigh in. So I'm concerned that they're not going to be looking for engagingbellevue.com. They're going to go to the city website. And right now there's no link. And I'm not saying there should be right now, but would love to see something just front and center so people know exactly where to go if they want to weigh in, or it can be under hot topics. I just want to make it super easy for them to find where they go if they want to weigh in on the comprehensive plan update. I think it also would be great if we could put something on the My Bellevue app as well, linking them to engagingbellevue.com or another page that you deem more appropriate. But just want to mention kind of that thought process. I just want to make it as easy as possible for people to weigh in. But I really appreciate the multi-pronged approach with mail and digital, the extensive outreach with the different forums, hopefully both in-person and digital. That's going to be great. And then different languages and different underrepresented groups that you're going to be communicating with as well. So really great job. I just want us to ultimately try and go that extra step in trying to solicit as much input as possible. So thank you for that. And I'll listen to your EBC answer. Thank you.
Certainly. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Apologize. I think that was a oversight for not mentioning that EBCC would be involved throughout the process. So we'll be doing similar to the boards and commissions. We'll be doing a briefing with the EBCC. They are, of course, have the authority since it's a comprehensive plan update and amendment. They'll be, they have legal standing and legal authority. So we'll be doing, we'll have a courtesy public hearing as our typical process, of course, but we'll be doing briefings with them as well throughout the process. And then, of course, once council provides direction or action on the comprehensive plan update in 2024, we will, of course, be going to them for approval.
Great, thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Stokes, followed by Councilmember Zahn.
Yeah, I really appreciate and congratulate you on this very thorough process and laying all this out. It's a big job going on. I think you've made it very transparent and clear and set up in a very good way. So I'm looking forward to working with you going forward on this and appreciate and the comments made by the Deputy Mayor. I think he's outlined a lot of the good issues that you can touch on, and I certainly agree with Councilmember Barksdale's request, and I think the Deputy Mayor incorporated that. So I think we're set very well for getting this serving both the citizens of Bellevue now and citizens of the future. So thank you very much, and looking forward to working on it.
Thank you. Councilmember Zahn, followed by Councilmember Lee. Uh-oh. I wonder if Councilmember Zahn is still with us.
Yeah, thank you. I want to thank the staff.
Councilmember Zahn, we're having some connectivity issues with you, unfortunately. Charmaine, could you reach out to Councilmember Zahn and see if we can help her?
I'm here. Can you not hear me?
It's really like you're underwater.
I can certainly give council members on a phone call. I will do that now.
Okay, let's go on to Councilmember Lee and we will come back to Councilmember Zahn.
Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Go ahead, Councilmember Lee. Go ahead, Councilmember Lee.
Thank you. I really
Is this better? I took my video off.
Councilmember Zahn, I'm going to ask you to wait until you speak with Charmaine, and I'll let Councilmember Lee go ahead right now, and we'll get back to you. Go ahead, Councilmember Lee.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to compliment the staff for laying out a very good process for this Phase 1 vision update. As we all know, I think I got a briefing that we need to update this every 8 years, so it's time to do it. And so my question is, what is council's role? It spelled out all the things that we want to do, and it was the time frame. So that's first of all. Beside you brief us, beside we want to approve it, what specifically is a very critical role we have, and I just want to see if this is what I think would be. Can you quickly say?
Sure, I can go over it. Yeah, Councilmember Lee, I can go over that. I think this tonight is an important night to do the formal launch. So having a common understanding of the body of work that we're doing over the next 2 years is important. When we come back to you in the June, July time period to brief you on the updated vision and the growth strategies that would drive us over the next 20 years, that's a critical meeting as well. And ultimately, the city council is the decision maker on this whole plan update. So come, early to mid part of 2024, it's the council's authority to actually adopt the updated plan for the city. So council has a critical role at a number of touch points during this next 2.5 years.
Yes, I think I agree. We have a definite role to formally approve it, right, or not. So it is. However, I see that we have another role is we provide the foundation for the vision. right? The vision has to come up somewhere. And was done 8 years ago, right? And we have been updating it all along, right? And when we had go to retreat. So I would really like to see, but it's just bits and pieces now has been built up. Many things has changed, right? And now we're ready to go to the public. So I would like to see what is, the staff remind us and give us, and I want to see that, because this is what we're going to give to the public to begin affirming the vision, right? So I would like to see what is the vision, see if the council has a final check-in, see, yes, absolutely, all 7 of us agree, or how we can come to agreement. Maybe we may not have things, remember some of them. Maybe we've added some, maybe we have deleted some. So I just like to have a check-in. And again, you did a good job, brief, the council members, I was included. And so I like to do that, okay? But we have a vision. I know kind of some vision, but you asked me today, I can't say, wow, vision 1 to 10. No way. I can give you, if I give you 5, I think I'll pass. I probably will pass. But so I like to do that. And then you gave only 2 months to affirm the vision. You specify March, April, and that seems to be, it's a very important process. I really appreciate every council member, including staff. We make engagement so important, very important, because we need to have the community know, the public, what our vision is. And we need to get them on board, or even not on board, we need to let them know what it is, right? So they have a say about it, and they can get on board, if they need, if you have to be. So I don't know whether 2 months is adequate, because we haven't started. I haven't looked at the vision as a whole. I like to do that. So I'd like to initiate, if that's the one piece. And so once we've done that, and then we will be together with you, working with the community and providing them with the vision and listening, and maybe we can then make our decisions at a certain point. Say, this is the vision, and we are modifying it, and we have heard the public. Maybe we can make some tweaking here and there if we agree to, or maybe we don't. I think that's a good process, because in order to come up with the vision that we will have for the next 20 years, we got to make sure we know, because everything we do is built on this vision. And I think some of the vision we've come up with is affordable housing. You mentioned very, very rightfully. We have a vision which 10 years ago we don't have as clear as we have today. Now we know it. So what we do, the activities we do, is going to build up to meeting that vision. And so this applies to all the other visions we may be telling the public, we may be having to work on. So I really think that's important. So what do you think? You think you can stretch the time frame a bit, or what is the process, or how can we ourselves to validate the vision for you so that you can go out? I know that you already done a public virtual event, which is good. You already began, but I think it's important for us to give a more full, more firm.
Councilmember Lee, right now, the motion on the table is just to direct staff to initiate the work.
Yes.
And so all that will come back to us. That's not the thing for tonight right now.
Okay, but we're approving all the schedule, all the timeline, all the focus, all the things we're talking about. If it's just simply approving a update, no question about it, I would approve it with just click of a finger, because we have to do it. It's important to do it. It helps us to know and define the vision for us as well as the public.
Okay.
And I love the process that is spelled out, because it's very, very good. Once we have the vision, step by step, steps as it goes. I have no question about it. I have no qualm about it. And I like the idea that council members emphasize. We need to provide overall community equity, everything we have learned over the years that we still are moving forward in our vision. So what are they? Okay, we need to do that. But I just want to know what specifically. that we are going to talk about. That's all. Thank you.
Mayor, if you want, I can give a very concise answer to that question.
Please, please.
Okay. Yeah, Councilmember Lee, we're looking at the existing vision in the comprehensive plan. So that's a starting point. We also have the council vision that is routinely updated every year or two at the council retreat. So we have that as a good starting point as well. So we'll be looking at those two existing documents and seeing how to update it. We have also been preparing over the past few months so that we can hit the ground running come early March with our engagement from the community on what they would like to see in the updated vision as well. So I think we have adequate time to do a very good engagement strategy, March, April, May, part of June. And then we really are looking forward to coming back to you in that June, July time period to report back on the update to the vision document. So hope that meets your needs, Councilmember Lee. And
it has. It's very well explained. The only thing I'm still asking though, as I mentioned, I don't know what the 10 points of vision is, whether we have 11 or 9, I don't know. I would love to. I think all the council members, if you already know, you don't know, but I want to be sure the 7 of us on the same page.
Well, we have a retreat coming up at the end of March. And so we will be visiting our vision statement, and then we will all be on the same page.
Absolutely. But I just like to remind us, we need to have that piece of thing. We can't just go out, give the public vision, and we suddenly say, oh, no. It's not.
Okay, Councilmember Lee, thank you for your input. I'm going to let Councilmember Zahn have a chance here to talk.
All right, well, hopefully folks can hear me now.
It seems better, yeah.
Oh, good, thank you. Anyway, I was starting to say I want to thank the staff for this thoughtful approach of looking at the planning through our comp plan update and having a timeline that, as we move forward, it helps us to stay on track. And if we need a little more time with one piece or another, I'm sure that we can work through that. And I'm just glad that we have those foundational visioning documents that you talked about, which is the ones already in the comp plan, our council vision, which we're going to make sure that we still have the same one at our retreat. And then I just think that it's important to also note that there's a 2050 Vision 2050 from a regional standpoint, where we've made some commitments to the adoptive growth targets that our comp plan also has to reflect. So I agree with the previous comments, and I would just add that, I think it's really, really key to make sure that all the voices are heard, those that are currently in our community and those that we are focused on housing and affordable housing, because we know that there are community members that maybe were here at one time that has been displaced. And so making sure that we've got those individuals. I appreciate the fact that we're talking about cultural outreach, ambassadors, translation, and outreach. I also want to make sure that we're reaching out to the LGBTQ community, as well as those with neurodiverse populations, because they may not always get their voices heard. And I just want to make sure that when we think about the vision of the community we want to be in the future in Bellevue, that we're as inclusive, welcoming as possible, and that we are also including those elements that we also look at related to that innovative smart city that we are continuing to grow into over the years with all of the investments that we've made. So I'm excited about the work that we've got ahead. And I think that it's going to take all of us rolling up our sleeve. And my hope is that as we do that outreach, we're meeting the community where they are. I appreciate the fact that we can do surveys and different community events that are where we are, but to the degree we can be where the people are that we're trying to reach, that will be really important. So thank you very much. I'm looking forward to this process.
Thank you. So I'll just finish up here. I'm so excited. This is, a real exciting opportunity for the council and for the community. And we've done this before, and it's been really good work. And since our last council retreat, we have, I think, 2 new value statements is that everything be equitable and sustainable. And I see that, represented in the work here that's moving forward. So I'm really excited to apply that to the comp plan and make sure that all the work we do from here on out are equitable and sustainable. And also, we have our council retreat again at the end of March, and we may come up with some new visioning. So we will be applying that as well. So this is really fun. I'm excited for it. And we have a number of council members here who have not had the opportunity to experience this process. And I'm really excited to include everybody into it. So thank you. We do have a motion on the table. Without other comments or questions, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, great. Our meeting is adjourned. And I ask that all the council members please check their emails for a new email. Thank you so much.